Captain Marcus Reed stood at the viewing port of the human transport ship, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. The Galactic Council Station was unlike anything humanity had ever built. It stretched for miles in every direction, a gleaming city floating in the darkness of space. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its countless ports, each one more advanced than Earth's best technology. Marcus adjusted his simple blue uniform and checked his reflection in the dark glass. He looked ordinary compared to what waited inside that station. At 42 years old, he had spent most of his career commanding cargo ships between Earth's colonies. Now, he was humanity's first ambassador to the galaxy. The thought made his stomach twist with nerves. "Captain, we're being hailed by station control," called out his communications officer, Lisa Park. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and nervous eyes. Like everyone else on the small human delegation, she had volunteered for this mission knowing it would change everything. "Put them through," Marcus said, walking back to his command chair. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature. That made several crew members gasp. It had 6 arms, blue-green skin, and eyes that moved independently of each other. When it spoke, its voice came through the translator as cold and formal. "Human vessel. You are cleared for docking bay 712. You will remain in that bay until escort arrives. Do not attempt to leave your ship without permission." The screen went dark before Marcus could respond. He looked around at his crew, seeing the same mix of excitement and fear on every face. They had traveled for 3 months to reach this place, and now they were being treated like prisoners. "Well," said Dr. Robert Kim, the mission science advisor. That was friendly. He was an older man with gray hair and thick glasses, always ready with a joke to lighten the mood. "I guess we're not getting the red carpet treatment." The docking process took another hour. Human ships were crude compared to the sleek vessels they saw moving around the station. Their fusion engines were loud and inefficient. Their hull plating was thick and ugly. Everything about their technology screamed primitive to anyone watching. When they finally docked, Marcus led his small team through the airlock and into the station proper. The moment they stepped inside, they knew they were out of their league. The corridor was enormous, easily 50 feet high, with walls that seemed to be made of some kind of living crystal. Creatures of every shape and size moved past them without a second glance. A tall, thin being with silver skin and no visible mouth approached them. It wore flowing robes that seemed to change color as it moved. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in their minds, rather than coming through their ears. "I am Guide Nexon. You will follow me to the council chambers. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not stray from the group." They walked through corridors that stretched for miles, past windows that showed views of space Marcus had never imagined. The station was so large it had its own weather systems. They passed what looked like entire forests growing inside vast chambers and lakes that floated in midair without any visible support. "How long has this station been here?" Dr. Kim asked quietly. "Longer than your species has existed," Nexon replied without slowing down. "The Council has maintained peace in this galaxy for 50,000 of your years. Your species is ... new." Way he said new made it sound like an insult. Marcus began to understand that humanity was not going to be welcomed as equals here. They were curiosities at best, pests at worst. The council chambers were even more impressive than the corridors. The room was spherical, with delegates floating in midair around the curved walls. Some sat in chairs that hovered without any visible support. Others seemed to exist as pure energy, just patterns of light that pulsed and shifted. In the center of the sphere was a platform where the human delegation was told to stand. Marcus looked around the room and counted representatives from at least 30 different species. The Fourth Empire delegation sat to his left, massive reptilian, creatures with scales that looked like armor and eyes like burning coals. Their leader, General Crix, was nearly 8 feet tall and radiated menace. Even while sitting still, across from them floated the representatives of the Thrix Collective, insect-like beings with multiple arms and wings that buzzed constantly. Their compound eyes reflected the light in ways that hurt to look at directly. They spoke in clicks and chirps that the translators turned into rapid, efficient sentences. High above them all, the Lumina Federation existed as balls of pure energy that occasionally took vaguely humanoid shapes. When they communicated, the entire room filled with colors that had no names in any spoken language. The Council recognizes the delegation from the species that calls itself human, announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. You may present your petition for recognition. Marcus stepped forward, his simple uniform looking shabby among all the advanced technology and exotic beings around him. He had rehearsed this speech 100 times during the journey, but now the words felt small and inadequate. Honored council members, he began, humanity comes before you seeking peaceful contact and trade relationships. We offer our friendship and our desire to learn from the wisdom of older civilizations. A sound filled the chamber that took Marcus. A moment to recognize his laughter. It came from dozens of different species, each expressing amusement in their own way. The reptilian Vorth hissed, the insectoid Thrix clicked rapidly, and the energy beings pulsed with what could only be described as condescending light patterns. General Crix leaned forward, his massive form casting a shadow over the human delegation. Friendship. What could a species that has barely learned to leave its own system offer to civilizations that have mastered time and space? Your technology is primitive, added Queen Mira of the Thrix Collective, her voice a rapid series of clicks. Your ships are slow, your weapons are crude. Your understanding of science is elementary, you have nothing we need. Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he kept his voice steady. We may be young, but we learn quickly. We adapt. We survive. This brought another wave of laughter from the assembled delegates. One of the Lumina beings pulsed bright yellow, which the translator interpreted as, survival is not an achievement. It is the minimum requirement for existence. The lead council member whose species Marcus couldn't identify spoke again. Council will consider your petition. Until then, you will remain in your assigned quarters on level 700. You are not permitted to access other areas of the station. Your ships will remain in quarantine. Quarantine? Dr. Kim asked. Are we considered dangerous? Dangerous? General Crix's laugh was like rocks grinding together. You are considered barely worth the energy required to maintain life support in your quarters. The quarantine is to protect you from accidentally harming yourselves with technology you cannot understand. As they were escorted back through the corridors, Marcus could feel the weight of every alien gaze upon them. They were not seen as potential allies or even enemies. They were seen as children playing with toys they didn't understand. The galaxy had looked at humanity and found them wanting. But as they walked back to their quarters, Marcus noticed something the aliens had missed. His crew was watching everything, learning, remembering. Lisa Park was discreetly recording the station's layout. Dr. Kim was analyzing the technology they passed. Even in their dismissal, humans were doing what they did best. They were adapting. None of them knew that this moment of humiliation would be the last time anyone in the galaxy would underestimate humanity. The Council had made their assessment, and soon they would act on it. They had decided that Earth's solar system would make an excellent testing ground for their new pacification technologies. They had picked the wrong fight. 3 weeks after the humiliating meeting at the Galactic Council, the alien fleets began moving toward Earth. The massive ships appeared on long-range sensors, like dark clouds gathering before a storm. On Earth, President Maria Santos called an emergency meeting of world leaders. While scientists worked frantically to understand what was coming, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her laboratory at the Global Research Center, staring at readings that made no sense. Had spent her career studying human DNA, but what she was seeing now challenged everything she thought she knew about her own species. The blood samples from the crew members who had returned from the Council station showed changes that should have been impossible. Run the test again, she told her assistant, Dr. Robert Kim, who had returned from the diplomatic mission, looking tired but strangely alert. His eyes seemed sharper than before, as if he was seeing things that others missed. I've run it 12 times, Elena, Robert said, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. The results are the same every time. The DNA is changing, not just in me, but in everyone who was on that station. Now it's spreading. Alina looked at the data again. Sections of human DNA that had been dormant for thousands of years were suddenly active. New neural pathways were forming in the brain. Chemical processes that had never existed before were beginning to work. It was as if humanity was waking up from a long sleep. "This is impossible," she whispered. "DNA doesn't just change like this. Evolution takes millions of years." "Maybe," Robert said, walking to the window where they could see the night sky. "Or maybe we never understood what human DNA was really designed to do." Outside, the first reports were coming in from around the world. People were experiencing strange dreams, vivid and clear, as if they were receiving information directly into their minds. Children were solving complex math problems they had never learned. Artists were creating works of beauty that seemed to come from some deeper understanding of the universe. Captain Marcus Reed was in his ship above Earth, coordinating the planet's defense preparations when the changes hit him. One moment he was looking at tactical displays that showed the approaching alien fleet, and the next moment he understood everything. The enemy ship formations, their likely strategies, their weaknesses. It was all suddenly clear to him in a way that went beyond normal military training. Sir called out his communications officer, Lisa Park. "I'm picking up something strange. The alien fleet is using a communication frequency that our equipment shouldn't be able to detect, but I can hear it anyway." Marcus looked at her and saw that her eyes had the same sharp focus that was becoming common among humans. "What are they saying?" "They're discussing their battle plans," Lisa said, her voice filled with wonder. "And I understand their language. I've never heard it before, but I know what every word means." Lieutenant Commander David Park, Lisa's older brother, was leading the first squadron of human fighters that would meet the alien fleet. He had been a good pilot before, but now he felt connected to his ship in ways that seemed impossible. Every system responded to his thoughts before he could touch the controls. His reaction time was faster than any human had ever achieved. "All pilots, this is Squadron Leader David Park," he said into his radio. "I know what you're all feeling. It's the changes, the new abilities. Don't fight them. Trust them. We're going to need every advantage we can get." The other pilots confirmed their readiness, and David could hear the same strange calmness in their voices. They weren't just better pilots now. They were becoming something more than human, something that could match the technology of species that had mastered space travel for thousands of years. Dr. Alina Vasquez was still in her lab when the first alien ships entered Earth's solar system. The readings from her equipment showed that the genetic changes were accelerating. Human brains were rewiring themselves at an incredible rate. New abilities were emerging every hour. "Alina, you need to see this," Robert called from across the lab. He was looking at a computer screen that showed brain scans from volunteers around the world. "Look at the neural activity in the frontal cortex. These people are thinking at levels we've never recorded before." "What's causing it?" Lena asked. Though she was beginning to suspect she already knew the answer. "Fear," Robert said simply. "The threat of extinction. It's like our DNA has a built-in emergency system that only activates when the entire species is about to die. We're not just evolving, Alina. We're transforming into what we were always meant to become." On the other side of the planet, night was falling, but people weren't sleeping. They were gathering in groups, sharing knowledge and insights that seemed to come from nowhere. Teachers were learning new subjects instantly. Engineers were designing machines they had never seen before. Doctors were understanding diseases in ways that previous generations of medical science had never achieved. Amy Chen, a young diplomat who had been part of the council mission, found herself able to speak languages she had never learned. More than that, she could sense the emotions and intentions of the people around her. When she looked at the approaching alien fleet through a telescope, she could almost feel the confidence and contempt of the beings inside those ships. "They think this will be easy," she told the group of officials gathered around her. "Hey, see us as insects to be stepped on? They have no idea what they're walking into." Tom Wright, a military engineer, was working on upgrading Earth's defense systems when he realized he could understand alien technology just by looking at it. The captured data from the council station, which had been meaningless before, now made perfect sense. He could see how their weapons worked, how their shields operated, and most importantly, how to defeat them. "Get me a connection to all military bases," he said to his assistant. I know how to modify our weapons to penetrate their defenses, but we need to work fast. As the alien fleet drew closer, the changes in humanity continued to accelerate. Had started as subtle improvements in thinking and perception was becoming something far more dramatic. Humans were developing abilities that seemed almost supernatural. They could sense things at vast distances, understand complex systems instantly, and coordinate their actions as if they shared a single mind. General Crix commanding the Vorth fleet watched the primitive planet below with satisfaction. His ships were equipped with weapons that could crack continents and shields that could withstand the explosion of stars. The humans had nothing that could threaten them. This would be a simple demonstration of council power, a way to show other primitive species what happened when they overstepped their bounds. Begin the pacification protocol, he ordered his crew. Target their major population centers first. We want the survivors to understand that resistance is futile. But as his fleet moved into attack position, his sensors began picking up strange readings from the planet below. The humans were moving in patterns that seemed almost coordinated, as if they were being directed by a single intelligence. Their primitive weapons were being modified in ways that his computers couldn't analyze. Most disturbing of all, their communications had shifted to frequencies that the Vorth equipment could barely detect. Sir called out his tactical officer. The human ships are approaching our position. They're using flight patterns that our database says they shouldn't know. General Crix looked at the tactical display and felt the first stirring of unease. The human ships were moving with precision that matched his own elite squadrons. Their formations were perfect, their timing flawless. This wasn't the chaotic response he had expected from a primitive species. Doesn't matter, he said, though. His voice carried less confidence than before. They're still using inferior technology. Begin the attack. What General Crix didn't know was that the inferior technology was being operated by minds that were no longer entirely human. The transformation that had begun with the crew of the diplomatic mission was now spreading across the entire species. Humanity was becoming something new, something that the galaxy had never seen before. The real fight was about to begin. The first alien ship to enter Earth's atmosphere was a Vorth destroyer, sleek and deadly, with weapons that could level entire cities. General Crix watched from his command ship as it descended toward the largest human population center, expecting to see panic and chaos. Instead, he saw something that made no sense. The humans were ready. Admiral Lisa Stone stood on the bridge of humanity's newest warship. It's a vessel that had been nothing more than scrap metal 3 days ago. But human hands guided by transformed minds had rebuilt it into something the galaxy had never seen. The ship's hull was covered in armor that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Its weapons were based on alien technology that the humans had somehow reverse-engineered in hours rather than years. All ships, this is Admiral Stone, she said into her communicator, her voice calm and controlled. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species in the galaxy that these bullies have pushed around. Show them what happens when you pick on the wrong planet. Lieutenant Commander David Park led the first wave of human fighters toward the approaching destroyer. His ship moved through space like it was dancing, avoiding energy blasts that should have been impossible to see coming. Behind him, 50 other pilots moved in perfect formation, their actions coordinated as if they shared a single mind. I'm reading something strange, called his sister Lisa from the communications station on Admiral Stone's ship. The alien ship is trying to adapt its shields to our weapons, but our weapons are adapting faster. David smiled as he watched his targeting system lock onto the destroyer's weak points. Weak points that human eyes shouldn't have been able to see, and technology that human minds shouldn't have been able to understand. But the transformation had given them abilities that went beyond normal human limits. All fighters concentrate. Fire on the shield generators, David ordered. Let's show them what we've learned. The human weapons struck the alien ship with precision that amazed even the pilots firing them. Each shot found exactly the right spot to cause maximum damage. The destroyer's shields flickered and failed within minutes, something that should have taken hours of sustained bombardment. On board the destroyer, Captain Vex of the Vorth Empire stared at his damage reports in disbelief. His ship was one of the most advanced in the galaxy, equipped with technology that had been refined over thousands of years. The primitive humans shouldn't have been able to scratch his hull, let alone disable his primary systems. Doing this? He demanded of his tactical officer. Their weapons are crude fusion-based projectiles. Our shield should stop them easily. Sir, the weapons appear to be crude, but they're hitting us with surgical precision. They know exactly where our weak points are, as if they've studied our ship designs for years. Captain Vex looked at the tactical display showing the human fighters swarming around his ship like angry insects. But these insects had stings that could penetrate the most advanced armor in the galaxy. Signal the fleet. Request immediate assistance. When he tried to contact General Crix's command ship, he found that the humans had somehow jammed communications across multiple frequencies that they shouldn't have known existed. The primitive species that couldn't even build faster-than-light drives had managed to cut off. His connection to the rest of the fleet, Dr. Robert Kim, stood in a laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by pieces of alien technology that had been recovered from early skirmishes. 3 days ago, this equipment had been completely beyond human understanding. Now, he could see how every component worked, how they fit together, and most importantly, how to make them better. Alina, look at this, he called to Dr. Vasquez, who was analyzing the latest genetic samples from volunteers around the world. I've figured out how their faster-than-light communication works, and I think I can build a better version. Alina looked up from her microscope, her eyes showing the same sharp intelligence that was now common among humans. Better, Robert. This technology is thousands of years ahead of anything we had a week ago. That's what I thought too, Robert said, holding up a small device that hummed with energy. Look at it from the perspective of what we're becoming. Their technology is efficient, yes, but it's also limited by their way of thinking. They've been using the same designs for so long that they've stopped innovating. We're approaching the same problems with completely fresh minds across the planet. Similar scenes were playing out in laboratories, factories, and military bases. Humans were not just learning to use alien technology, they were improving it. Weapons became more accurate, shields became stronger, and engines became faster. Each improvement was shared instantly across the global network of transformed minds. Spreading knowledge at a rate that seemed impossible, General Crix watched his tactical display with growing alarm. The human response was unlike anything in his military experience. Their ships moved with coordination that matched his best elite units. Their weapons penetrated defenses that had never been breached. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be getting better with each engagement. Sir, we've lost contact with 3 destroyers, reported his communications officer. The humans appear to have disabled them and are now studying their technology. Disabled? Crix's voice was a low growl. How do you disable a Vorth destroyer with primitive weapons? They're not using primitive weapons anymore, sir. Our intelligence was wrong. These humans have technology that rivals our own, and they're using it with tactical skill that suggests extensive military training. Crix studied the reports flowing in from across the fleet. Ship after ship was reporting damage from weapons that shouldn't exist, fired by pilots who flew like they had been born in space. The easy conquest he had planned was turning into a real battle. Contact the Council, he ordered. Tell them we need reinforcements. These humans are not what they appeared to be. But even as he gave the order, Crix knew it was too late. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. And with each victory, they were learning more about Vorth technology, Thrix communication systems, and Lumina energy manipulation. They were absorbing the knowledge of 3 advanced civilizations and making it their own. Tom stood in the command center of Earth's primary defense facility, watching displays that showed the battle raging in space above, but his attention was focused on something far more important than the immediate fight. The humans weren't just winning individual battles, they were learning the deeper secrets of galactic civilization. Amy, I need you to see this, he called to Amy Chen, who had become Earth's primary analyst of alien psychology. Look at these communication intercepts from the Thrix fleet. Amy studied the translated messages and felt a surge of understanding that went beyond simple language comprehension. She could sense the fear and confusion in the alien communications. the growing realization that they had made a terrible mistake. "They're starting to understand," she said quietly. "The aliens are beginning to realize that we're not the primitive species they thought we were. But it's too late for them to stop what they started." The transformation that had begun as a response to threat was now accelerating beyond anything the humans had expected. They weren't just developing new abilities, they were becoming something entirely new. A species that could adapt to any challenge, learn from any opponent, and turn any disadvantage into a strength. On his command ship, General Crix made a decision that would change everything. He activated the fleet's most powerful weapon, a device that could destroy entire solar systems. If the humans wanted to fight, he would give them one that would end all fights forever. But as he prepared to fire the weapon, something impossible happened. The targeting system failed, the power couplings overloaded. The weapon that had never malfunctioned in 1,000 years of service simply stopped working. "Sir, we're detecting human ships inside our defensive perimeter," called his tactical officer, his voice filled with panic. "They've somehow penetrated our shields without triggering any alarms." Crix looked at his display and saw human fighters moving through his fleet like ghosts, invisible to sensors that should have detected them easily. They weren't just fighting the aliens anymore, they were infiltrating them, learning their secrets. From the inside, the galaxy had picked a fight with the wrong species. Humanity wasn't just fighting back, they were evolving into something that could match any threat, overcome any obstacle, and turn any enemy's strength against them. The real war was just beginning, and the aliens were starting to realize they might not win it. 6 months after the first alien attack on Earth, the galaxy was a very different place. Human ships appeared in systems that had been under alien control for thousands of years, but they didn't come as conquerors, they came as liberators. "Captain," Amy Chen stood on the bridge of the human vessel. Freedom as it approached the mining world of Kepler-7. The planet had been strip-mined by the Vorth Empire for centuries. Its native population forced to work in dangerous conditions with no hope of freedom, but that was about to change. "Amy, I'm detecting Vorth patrol ships moving to intercept us," called out Lieutenant James Miller from the tactical station. His enhanced senses could pick up enemy movements from distances that would have been impossible for normal humans to detect. "Let them come," Amy said calmly. "But first, open a channel to the planet's surface. All frequencies." The main screen lit up with the face of a creature Amy had never seen before. It looked somewhat like a large bird, with bright blue feathers and intelligent golden eyes. This was one of the Keth, the native species that the Vorth had enslaved when they conquered this world. "People of Kepler-7, Amy said, her words being translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We are humans from Earth. We've come to offer you a choice. You can continue living under Vorth rule, or you can be free. The decision is yours." Response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the planet's surface, the enslaved workers began to rise up against their Vorth overseers. They had been waiting for this moment for generations. And now it had finally come. Commander Tom Wright led a squadron of human fighters toward the Vorth patrol ships. The enemy vessels were larger and more heavily armed, but Tom and his pilots had advantages that went beyond simple technology. They could anticipate the aliens' moves before they made them, coordinate their attacks with perfect timing, and adapt their tactics in real time. The battle was over in minutes. The Vorth ships found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned by opponents who seemed to know their every move. But instead of destroying the defeated vessels, the humans did something that surprised everyone involved. "Vorth ships, this is Commander Wright," Tom broadcast on all frequencies. "We're offering you the same choice we gave the people on the planet below. You can continue following orders from an empire that sees you as expendable, or you can join us in building something better." On the lead Vorth ship, Captain Rex stared at his tactical display in confusion. His ship was disabled, his weapons were offline, and his crew was looking to him for orders. But what orders could he give? The humans had defeated him easily then, offered him mercy instead of destruction. "Human commander," Rex said slowly, "what do you mean by something better?" We mean a galaxy where different species work together instead of one dominating all the others, Tom replied. We've learned that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Would you like to see for yourself? Within hours, Rex and his crew were aboard the human ship, witnessing something they had never seen before. Humans worked alongside aliens from dozens of different species, all of them treated as equals. Former enemies had become friends. Former slaves had become partners. Dr. Robert Kim was in his laboratory aboard the flagship New Earth, analyzing data from the latest liberated system. What they were finding challenged everything the galactic civilizations thought they knew about space, time, and the nature of reality itself. Lena, look at this. He called to Dr. Vasquez, who was studying biological samples from newly encountered species. The enhanced humans aren't just learning alien technology faster than should be possible. They're understanding the fundamental principles behind it. We're making discoveries that these civilizations never achieved in thousands of years. Lena nodded, holding up a vial of glowing liquid. It's the same with biology. This sample is from a species the Thrix thought was extinct, but the humans who liberated their homeworld found survivors and figured out how to cure the genetic disease that was killing them. The Thrix had given up on them as hopeless. The transformation of humanity was accelerating beyond anything they had originally experienced. The enhanced humans were not just adapting to alien technology, they were transcending it. They were finding solutions to problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for millennia. Admiral Lisa Stone stood in the command center of the massive space station that humans had built in just 3 months. It was larger than the Galactic Council station. But unlike that symbol of domination, this one was open to all species. Former enemies worked together on projects that benefited everyone. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different Vorth systems, reported her communications officer. They want to negotiate terms for joining our alliance. What about the Thrix Collective? Lisa asked. Queen Mira has requested a personal meeting. She says the collective is prepared to dissolve itself and join our cooperative structure. Lisa smiled. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had thought possible. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were laying down their weapons and working together. But it wasn't happening through conquest or force. It was happening because the humans were offering something better. General Crix sat in his prison cell aboard the human station, watching through the window as former enemies worked side by side. His empire was crumbling, not because it had been defeated in battle, but because his own people were choosing to leave it. The door to his cell opened, and Amy Chen walked in. She had been the one to capture him during the final battle for the Vorth homeworld, but she had treated him with respect, even in defeat. General, she said, sitting down across from him, we've received a request from your home planet. They want you to come back, not as their military leader, but as their representative in the new Galactic Alliance. Crix looked at her with eyes that held both confusion and hope. Why would you allow this? Tried to destroy your species. Because you were following the only system you knew, Amy replied. But now there's a better way. Your people have seen it, and they want to be part of it. The question is, do you? Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place. The Lumina Federation, beings of pure energy who had considered themselves superior to all physical life, were learning to work with solid matter species for the first time in their existence. The result was technology that combined the best of both energy and matter, creating possibilities that neither could achieve alone. President Maria Santos stood before the First Galactic Assembly, a gathering unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the Great Hall, not as conquered subjects or dominant rulers, but as equals working toward common goals. 6 months ago, the galaxy tried to destroy humanity because they saw us as a threat, Maria said, her words being translated into every language present. They were right about one thing. You were a threat, but not to their people. You were a threat to their system of domination and fear. The assembly erupted in applause from beings who had never thought they would live to see such a day. Species that had been enemies for longer than human civilization had existed were now working together on projects that would benefit everyone. The old Galactic Council ruled through force, Maria continued. We offer something different. Offer partnership. We offer growth. We offer the chance for every species to become more than they ever thought possible. In the research stations that now dotted the galaxy, human and alien scientists worked together on problems that had seemed impossible just months before. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia were being cured. Energy sources that could power entire systems were being developed. Faster-than-light travel was becoming so efficient that the galaxy seemed to shrink every day. But the most important change wasn't technological. It was social. The enhanced humans had discovered something that the old galactic powers had never understood. True strength didn't come from dominating others. It came from lifting others up and working together toward goals that no single species could achieve. Alone, the galaxy had tried to crush humanity, but instead they had awakened something far more powerful than any weapon or technology. They had awakened the human capacity to bring out the best in others, to find common ground among enemies, to build something better than what had come before. The war was over, but the real victory was just beginning. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had transformed it into something worth living in. 2 years after the first alien attack on Earth, the galaxy celebrated its first Universal Peace Day, on worlds that had known only war and oppression for thousands of years. Beings from hundreds of different species gathered together in harmony. That would have been impossible to imagine just a short time ago. President Maria Santos walked through the gardens of New Harmony Station, the massive space city that had become the center of galactic civilization. Unlike the old Council Station with its cold corridors and restricted areas, New Harmony was open to everyone. Children from dozens of species played together in parks where the gravity could be adjusted for different comfort levels. Scientists shared discoveries in laboratories that combined the best technologies from across the galaxy. President Santos called a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see former General Crix approaching, but he looked very different from the fierce warrior who had once commanded fleets bent on humanity's destruction. He wore simple robes instead of armor, and his eyes held peace instead of anger. Crix Maria smiled. How are the integration programs going on Vorth Prime? Better than we ever hoped, he replied, walking beside her through gardens tended by both Vorth and human botanists. Our young people are learning faster than we thought possible. They're developing abilities similar to what humans gained during the transformation. It seems that when species work together instead of fighting, everyone becomes more than they were before. Maria nodded. This was the discovery that had changed everything. The evolutionary surge that had transformed humanity during their moment of crisis wasn't unique to their species. When beings work together in true cooperation, sharing knowledge and supporting each other, they all began to evolve beyond their previous limitations. Dr. Robert Kim stood in the Central Research Facility, surrounded by colleagues from across the galaxy. The Thrix scientist Buzz worked beside human engineer Lisa Park, while Illumina Energy, being called Shine, collaborated with Vorth geneticist Scale. Together, they'd made discoveries that none of their species could have achieved alone. The test results are conclusive, Robert announced to the assembled researchers. The evolutionary catalyst isn't stress or fear, it's cooperation. When different species truly work together, sharing not just knowledge but genuine trust and friendship, it triggers dormant potential in all of them. So the transformation that saved humanity, asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, was just the beginning? Exactly, Robert smiled. We thought the threat of extinction caused our evolution, but we were wrong. It was our response to that threat, our willingness to adapt and work together, that unlocked our potential. And now we're seeing the same thing happen galaxy-wide. Evidence was everywhere. Thrix workers who had been simple drones for their collective were developing individual creativity and independent thought. Worth soldiers who had known only conquest were becoming artists and philosophers. Lumina beings who had existed as pure energy were learning to appreciate physical experiences through cooperation with matter-based species. Former Queen Mira of the Thrix Collective, now simply called Mira, worked in the agricultural centers of New Harmony. She had discovered a talent for growing things, something that would have been impossible in the rigid hierarchy of the old collective. Beside her, a human farmer named Jack taught her techniques that his family had used for generations. While she shared insights about plant biology that came from her species' different way of seeing the world, "Jack," she said, her translated voice filled with wonder, "my ancestors spent thousands of years believing that individual thoughts were weakness. But look what we've accomplished together in just 2 years." Jack smiled as he looked at the gardens. Around them, where earth vegetables grew beside alien fruits and soil that had been enriched by nutrients from a dozen different worlds, turns out different doesn't mean better or worse. It just means different. And when you put different things together the right way, you get something amazing. Commander Tom Wright stood on the observation deck of the exploration ship Discovery, watching as teams of mixed species explorers prepared to investigate a region of space that had been considered too dangerous for any single civilization to explore. But together, combining human adaptability, Thrick's precision, Vorth's strength, and Lumina energy manipulation, they could go places and do things that had never been possible before. Tom called Captain Amy Chen from the bridge. "We're receiving a signal from the Outer Rim. It's from a species we've never encountered before. They're asking for help." Tom smiled. This was how the new galaxy worked. Instead of conquering or dominating new species, they offered help, friendship, and the chance to be part of something bigger than any one world or civilization. The signal came from a small, blue-green world where a species called the Nala was facing extinction from a disease that their science couldn't cure. In the old galaxy, they would have been left to die while more powerful species divided up their resources. But now, the first response was to offer aid. Within days, ships from dozens of different species converged on the Nala homeworld. Human doctors worked with Thrick's biologists and Vorth chemists to analyze the disease. Lumina beings provided energy to power the medical equipment. While other species contributed their own unique skills and knowledge, the cure was found in less than a week, something that would have taken any single species years to develop. But more importantly, the Nala were invited to join the galactic community as equals, not as subjects or servants. Elder Kala of the Nala stood before the Galactic Assembly, tears flowing down her feathered face as she spoke. "For generations, we watched the stars and wondered if there was intelligent life out there. We never imagined that when we finally met them, they would become our family." The assembly erupted in celebration, beings from hundreds of worlds applauding in their own unique ways. This was what the galaxy had become, a place where meeting strangers meant gaining new friends and family members. Dr. Elena Vasquez presented her final report on the transformation to the assembly. "We now understand that evolution isn't about survival of the fittest," she explained. "It's about survival of the most cooperative. Species that work together, that share and support each other, become stronger than any could be alone." The old Galactic Council believed in hierarchy, added former Lumina representative Bright, whose energy patterns now pulsed with warmth instead of cold authority. They thought some species were naturally superior to others. We've learned that every species has unique gifts, and when we combine those gifts, we all become more than we ever thought possible. President Maria Santos stood to address the assembly one final time. "The galaxy tried to destroy humanity because they saw us as a threat to their way of life. They were right. We were a threat to a system based on fear, domination, and the belief that some beings were worth more than others." She looked around the great hall at the hundreds of species that now called each other family. "But we offered something better. We offered the chance to grow together, to learn from each other, and to build a galaxy where everyone has value." The transformation that had begun with humanity's desperate fight for survival had spread across the entire galaxy. But it wasn't the evolution of bodies or minds that mattered most. It was the evolution of hearts and spirits. The discovery that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that diversity was more valuable than uniformity, and that the greatest strength any species could have was the ability to make friends out of enemies. The galaxy had picked a fight with the wrong species. But in losing that fight, they had won something far more valuable. They had won a future where every being could reach their full potential, where every species could contribute their unique gifts, and where the word enemy was becoming as obsolete as the word slave. The new galaxy was just beginning, and it was more beautiful than anyone had ever dared to dream.